Serious, divorced people of Reddit, what could have saved your marriage? I literally just asked for a divorce yesterday. Communication. She didn't tell me she was unhappy for 2 years. I didn't hear about any real things she dislikes about the relationship until after she kissed someone else, and by then, she was too unhappy to work on it. I never told her I was upset either. I would bury it until everything all came out at once. But, instead, she created an environment where she always felt like walking on eggshells and cultivated that she could never communicate what she was feeling. So, she felt unhappy, unloved, despite always hearing from me how proud I was of her, scratching her back, hugs, whatever, and decided to get that attention elsewhere. Both sides are at fault. Communication though. My father, who divorced from my mother a long time ago now, has openly said they would probably still be together if he wasn't such an a-hole at that time. They broke up a long time ago, probably 25 years ago now. They had me very young, both 17, but stuck together. What didn't help was that my father at the time was involved in a lot of unsavory activities and was well known locally as a guy that could win fights / take care of others, for a price / get you whatever you needed, etc. As such, he had an image to keep up, as it were, and my mother took a bit of a back seat to said image / activities, and it drove my mother away. He's openly admitted this me, and himself after several years of denial, which is kind of nice to see a guy that I've seen as this big hard man, which was his image way back when, concluding that he was wrong and should have stuck with his family. That was a really long time ago now, and both are happy or remarried, and I'm happy for both of them. The whole thing taught me a lot about relationships / marriage when I was a kid / teen, which stuck with me. I'm married myself, 8 years now, 15 together including that though, have a daughter who has just started high school here in the UK, and I can happily say I've never put my family second, as I know exactly what it does. Her realizing that the things I experienced during my childhood weren't my fault and didn't make me crazy or less of a man. Her realizing that it is wrong to hold my prior suicide attempt from me dealing with my childhood issues over my head for almost 20 years and, during one difficult time, encouraging me to try again. Her realizing that her mother sexually assaulting me was not my fault and not something I should be punished for every day for over a decade. I, myself, moving on sooner from the anger at my past and then present abuses. Some relationships are doomed from the start. We made it almost 20 years where either one of us had every reason to leave. I am thankful for the family we made. I was willing to work on it, and he wasn't, so the only thing that could have saved it was him realizing he was a major part of the problem. My ex was a narcissist who was basically having an emotional affair with his daughter. He was emotionally and sexually abusive to me. I was the primary money earner, but I was allowed no knowledge or control over our finances, so we were always broke. I became very depressed and couldn't afford to get help. I found an affordable marriage counselor at one point, but he didn't want to put in the time or the work on himself. Eventually, he couldn't handle being around me anymore because my depression was so bad, and he wanted out. At least he said he did, but I think it was just another manipulation tactic. Because of my religious upbringing, I didn't think divorce was an option, but I'm so glad he gave me the out. Once I felt like saving the marriage was impossible, and out of my hands, I managed to get the divorce finalized within 2 weeks. I feel horrible for his little girl and wish that sweet child the best. But I hope he never finds happiness. The better question is, now would I want to have saved my marriage? We divorced very amicably, and I don't look back on my ex with negative feelings. It was different around that time. I did feel like a failure and was frustrated with them. I wish we had just waited a lot longer to decide to get married in the first place. My ex was like a good friend that I shouldn't have really been married to, just been good friends with. I don't know that they really wanted to be married to anyone, and I'm not sure we were quite the right marriage pair. I've since realized that my parents were right. If you're with someone you could be in a good marriage with, waiting won't hurt anything. A lot of personal growth on my part before getting married. But that would have prevented marriage rather than divorce. The first time, a driver's license might have saved us. We met in college, married in grad school, and the what's next started looming. He had a humanities PhD and was happy being a barista on the edge of town with no bus service, and he had no desire to learn to drive. Somehow that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I have to drive you to and from work every day because you just don't want to learn to drive yourself. Obviously, the issues in the marriage were much more complicated, but I remember that argument being one of the last. The second one, not sure anything could have saved that. He had crippling insecurity that resulted in seeking validation from other women and lying about everything he could conceivably lie about out of weird self-protection. He lied about making a sandwich for lunch when I knew we were out of bread. Found Tinder on his phone for the third or fourth time, just to make friends, and I was done. The third one, joke. Hasn't happened. I'm just coming to terms with the fact that I don't think anything could have. I was in denial about the amount of trauma I had from my sister's death and how much it had caused me to shut down emotionally. I think I was only capable of loving him as a friend because we met before she died. I haven't been able to let myself love anyone I've met since, in any capacity, because if you love someone, they can die and tear your life apart, right? Anyway, a side effect of being closed off emotionally meant that I also couldn't allow myself to feel romantic love or sexual intimacy. Still, I thought I could force myself to get there because he was one of my best friends, and I wanted it to work so badly. Of course, we had other issues that I think we could have worked through, but I wasn't even really aware of how to shut down I was at the time, and there's no saving a relationship if one person isn't capable of being in one. It was only recently, when I was dating this really amazing woman and realized I was falling into the same thought patterns, that I recognized that I really needed to go to therapy and do the work before I hurt someone else. These are the things I've learned in 26 years, still married but almost divorced twice. First, don't sweat the small things. It's absolutely not worth it to either of you. Be willing to make compromises and look at things from your partner's perspective, or simply in a way that doesn't place your views and feelings on a pedestal. Try your hardest not to be an uncompromising partner, that's also not worth it, and both your lives will be much happier and more laid back. Be honest about your feelings and concerns, etc. Try your hardest to support each other and work as a team through the difficulties in your relationship and your life, and you will be able to conquer anything together. Also, try to make time at least every couple of days to do something together that you both enjoy, even if it's only for an hour or two. For example, watch TV/movie, go for a walk, eat out, paint Warhammer, listen to music, whatever, just something. You will cherish those times later, and it will bring you closer together. She really needed to work on her mental health and refused to do so until I had been checked out of the relationship for about 4 to 6 months at that point. I had to deal with 3 years of temperamental mood swings, her wanting a divorce every 6 months because I wasn't making enough money when already working 60-hour weeks. When I was working 80-hour weeks, I wasn't cleaning the apartment. The only time I was home I was asleep, so I wasn't making it messy, and spending enough time with her, or spending it with her, so I didn't have time to make a mess or clean. Then she also required me to cook and do the dishes. Finally, I told her the next time she says she wants a divorce. I was done because I was literally killing myself to attempt to make her happy. I was so dead inside I was done, and then when she said she wanted a divorce because I was no longer the bubbly guy that made her laugh and smile, I just said okay, got up from the couch and went to bed. She was so pissed off over the next 2 months I only treated her as a roommate. She tried lying about how abusive I was. I lost many mutual friends to those lies until they realized she was living with me still instead of trying to get out. They offered her rooms, and her parents had a spare room for her that they knew about. However, all it would have taken was her working on her mental health that just kept deteriorating and creating unrealistic expectations. I wish her the best, but I really feel bad for her future partners unless she makes significant changes. She will burn them to the ground with those expectations. I will say within 2 weeks of her moving out, my mental health was significantly better. I realized it when I took a lunch break, been WFH due to the virus, and stood up to make lunch. I felt light, and this was because all the stress I had prior due to her had been lifted. So don't stay in a bad relationship if it is literally causing you to feel weighed down by its stress. Not saved my marriage but saved me from marrying, the first time, knowing my own core values and understanding my partner's core values. My first marriage lasted nearly 10 years as we existed in parallel as parents. Our goals and, more fundamentally, our values never aligned. We were in our early 20s when we married and didn't know enough to have those discussions. We weren't really reflective enough to even define our own values. While there's always compromise in any relationship, I struggled with the compromises that infringed on my values. I realized this in couples therapy. My second marriage has a much stronger foundation. We both value education/learning, personal growth, community and community service, integrity, adventure, authenticity and compassion. I feel very at peace in my relationship, even though we are both driven individuals. We both turn toward each other when there are external stressors, and we are committed to the relationship. We are open with each other and curious to know the other person. We admire and respect one another. It's quite nice. He needed to get anger management, step up and help raise our child, not put everything other than working outside the home on me, stop being selfish, be personally responsible, and listen to the marriage counselor the first time. But, instead, he only wanted to listen to the second marriage counselor that he handpicked and knew well previously, and only at the point that I was literally days from walking out the door. It's been 7 years since I left. He got anger management. That's about all that has changed. He's still irresponsible. He still values his time and preferences above everyone else. He can't keep a job, hold down his place, or even stick to the times he has our child, which is only 3 weekends a month. He still doesn't properly communicate. He still tries to blame his shortcomings on others. I'm a child of divorced parents, and my dad is trash. My mom isn't great either, but my dad is worse. Their marriage was bad, but the divorce and aftermath worse. We were thrust into poverty because my dad was the main breadwinner, and he was cheap, so he didn't pay the child support properly. She spent too much money, so my sister and I never saw a dime of it if he did send it. If we had moved into a bigger house, I think we would have been fine. He refused to move to a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood, even within the same town. We were in a less than 1,000 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath home with 2 parents, 2 kids and a big dog, tiny kitchen with 1 countertop. The school district was okay. I was bullied through, and I have a lot of trauma from that town. It was honestly unbearable. We were on top of each other constantly. They had no privacy. We had no privacy. They wake us up in the middle of the night with their fights. We couldn't get away. He would scream at my mom that if she asked to move again, he would divorce her. He divorced her anyway. Now my mom and sister are still stuck in that shoebox of a house in an increasingly rough neighborhood. He's in a huge 3-bed, 2-bath house in a beautiful neighborhood by himself. There were other issues. Money issues. He cheated on her time and time again and is cheating on his current, very nice GF. Issues galore. But the lack of space and privacy drove us all utterly insane. If the all ifs put together, if my wife wasn't so clumsy and stopped tripping and landing on other guys, if she had listened to either of the counselors we went to for therapy, if she'd loved me, if I'd tried harder, if he had stopped watching the news 24/7 and being negative all the time, if I had stopped drinking and he kept a stable job. But honestly, we are both much happier now, so it was a good thing. If he would have stayed away from drugs and decided to grow up and be a man instead of a baby, if your answer to this question is because he or she, then you probably don't know the answer yet. If he had admitted he had rage problems and went to talk to someone like his family and me tried, if she didn't cheat, if we had moved into a bigger house, I think we would have been fine.